This episode, I'd like to take a moment to say that today's guest, Hayden, he is wishing everyone to support him and his partner in a. They are having a little bit of a tough time, as everyone is, but I attached a GoFundMe page at the bottom of this video, so please go support him and his partner. Just take a moment of your time, because as we all know, it is a rough period in our lives, and artists should be helping artists. So, yes. But yes, please enjoy today's video. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Performing the Arts. My name is Bryan M. Davis. I'm your host for this little podcast, talk show, whatever you want to call it. And right now, I'm going to be interviewing someone who I actually worked with previously.
Hey, name's Hayden. Hope everyone's having a good day so far.
Hayden is an actor living in New York City, as most of my people who I've interviewed so far, aside from 6-Bit Wanderer. For the most part, Hayden and I actually worked together a couple of years ago on a off-Broadway production. Well, not off-Broadway production, but we worked together almost very recently on an off-Broadway comedy show called Christmas in Time in the City. I was supposed to be in that show, but I had a slight case of death, i.e. a stomach flu, and I really bowed out. But in the time we actually worked together, we actually became very good friends, and this is my first time actually interviewing him. And so, yeah. So, Hayden, what is your background in acting? How did you discover acting? Like, was it purely educational, or was it something that was like a hobby that sort of like became like almost, hey, this is a good career I might do?
Well, it kind of started off as like a hobby at first when I was younger, because it just kind of was one of those things where I'm like, hey, this seems like it could be, like it makes sense to me. I'll try it out. And then as I started taking acting classes when I was in high school, I kind of started really to like develop a love for acting. And then I started doing more plays, and then as time progressed, I was like, hey, you know what? I should try to make something out of this. So like not just a hobby, I try to like, make something with it. So I, like, as soon as I graduated high school, I pretty much went straight to New York, started acting school for like 3 years, and did some stuff outside of that, after those 3 years, a bunch of like very off Broadway kind of stuff, and like, pretty much like what every New York actor does, a bunch of like student films, short films. And honestly, I feel like you're not a New York actor if you haven't done something for some sort of like student NYU production in some way.
Yeah, that's the thing about New York acting, is that there is a lot of productions that you see online, especially auditions-wise, that are stemming from either NYU, student films, that sort of thing. So I think for the most part, like what you just said, you aren't a New York actor until you have done a student film for either NYU or just a student film in general. It's almost like you made your bones. It's like, hey, I've done a couple of off Broadway productions. I performed in Club in Manhattan. That's like 60th Street and somewhere like in Midtown. And then I've sang in a couple of bars, but hey, I've finally done a student production. I mean, I've finally done like a student for NYU. So I know I made it. So yeah, it's like, and it's not because a lot of actors, especially in the past, who lived in New York, have gotten their start really with NYU student films, that sort of thing. In terms of the student films, were they essentially kind of coherent? Because I know some student films that I've done in the past, they were kind of coherent, but at the same time they weren't coherent enough, which isn't a knock against what they were. It's just that it's
Yeah, it's like Yeah, you see a lot of weird stuff with like the student productions. I feel like part of that is like their own creativity in a way, or it's also just like whatever their assignment was they were given, they had to try and work within the confines of that. Like I've done a few where it's like, okay, this actually is good. Like this could actually be something legit. It's not too out there. Like I could actually see this as, something like, I don't know, I'd seen maybe some sort of TV show possibly or something. And then there are some others where it's like absolute absurdity. That makes no sense no matter how many times I would read the script. But I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense, but well, it's work. It's not, well, I mean, not really paid work, but it's acting work essentially.
Yeah, especially it's almost similar to
Mm-hmm.
stuff you see like somewhat when you're just looking for auditions and you see those like type
Mm-hmm.
of log lines for plays, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like short one act plays. It's almost like I have no idea what. And it's like, but it's like what you just said. It's work, so it's sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the meat of everything. Is
Mm-hmm.
that especially in New York, especially living in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
the bulk of everything is just trying to do that work and trying to keep that workflow going. And unfortunately, we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
in a very rough time where the workflow has stopped because of the coronavirus, that sort of thing. And
Yeah. Although actually, I kind of have a theory about how like a lot of stuff is probably gonna get made during this time. If it does, it's gonna be a lot of like post-apocalyptic kind of scenarios. Because I feel like if anyone's gonna make stuff, really, I feel like that's kind of the best route to do it because it's the easiest way to really justify the masks. Or they basically have to be like, or even just like regular life, but now it has to be the COVID aspect has to be addressed in it, which is actually gonna be very fascinating to see like if that's something that would happen where now every character is basically gonna be wearing masks or like in regular shows, or if it's gonna be stuff where it's like some other justification for the masks. Like they won't say, oh, it's COVID, so we have to do this, like make up some crazy, you know, whatever disease going on or whatever. Like, oh look,
yeah,
it's the disease from The Last of Us, so we all have to like wear masks so we don't breathe in the spores or whatever or something like that.
yeah, which is interesting because there's a recurring. Well, I would say there's a recurring joke about how Avengers Endgame is like set in like maybe 2023. Yeah, it's set in 2023. It's like so,
Yeah.
and people are like, wait a minute. It's like if that happened in 2023, does that mean COVID-19 still happened in 2020? And then people were and
Hmm.
still be addressed in like the future movies because people are like, and but it's like what you just said before is probably it might get addressed as being, oh, it's some probably new disease that happened to spawn out of like Thanos. I mean not Thanos. Dr. Banner's like re-snapping or something
Hmm.
like that, whereas it's like uh, and but yeah, it's uh,
Or it could even be like, oh well, this is the result of all of that time travel business that screwed up the timelines now possibly, or
yeah,
even like a new alien threat thing that somehow brought this new disease thing.
yeah, it's very because a lot of things have essentially been slowed down because of the production aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that the films that are being released that were supposed to be released this year have
Mm-hmm.
been almost
Like I've
well,
pretty much all been pushed back or like essentially going to be put on streaming service instead of the like put in theaters for those release date times.
yeah. Um, do you see that as a positive, or do you see that as a negative in terms of business?
Um, it kind of depends. Like I think it kind of goes both ways because I see the positive aspects where it's like, say you have like a big family. It's like you have a husband, a wife. They have like two or three kids, and if they went to go see a Marvel movie in theaters, where tickets depending on what theater you go to, average theaters tend to be like maybe 15, $20 a ticket. So you've just spent like probably $100 worth of tickets or so. Maybe I mean maybe less depending on how they price it for like younger children tickets. But like it's still a good chunk of money you spent to go see a movie. Whereas like you might not be able to like really carve out that time to really go see it, because especially because a lot of people have to like, you know, drive out to the movie theaters to do that and then drive back. And it's like, well, why do that when it's like I could just come straight home from work and then we could just watch this movie together as a family, just have some dinner, watch it together, everyone goes to bed.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side of that, though, the biggest difference though is like a lot of those movie theaters have such like high quality, um, like showings of the movies that you would never really be able to get at this time with like streaming services. So that is, it's kind of a double-edged sword, really. I think streaming the movies is a good strategy for now until the new normal kind of really takes effect. But then once, like, you know, it is safe to really be outside, not have to worry about the pandemic, then going to the theater would be yeah. I think it's one of those things where it really just kind of is more about the current time. And then once it's over, it'll probably go back to normal, where like movies will be safe to go watch in theaters, and then people will go to see on the big screens, especially for the high quality resolution.
Yeah. And it's funny how you mentioned sword, because I know you're a cosplayer. And,
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
because
relatively newer.
I've seen your work, and it's quite fascinating how you're able to build up all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and as a cosplayer, and since cosplaying is a performing art in
Mm-hmm.
a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
in some fields, well, it is performing art. Really. Do you see cosplay being essentially toned down because of what's been happening, or do you see sort of like people
Mm-hmm.
cosplay and go to a New York Comic Con, wherever, whenever that may be, because I'm not sure if they are still doing a New York Comic Con this year, and if so,
I feel
do you still see there's like the same regulations that are happening now to like other places? Because I know Comic Con this year, the actual Comic Con, it was canceled. So do you see like conventions in general just essentially like taking a step back in terms of how many people are in there, that sort of thing?
I think that's definitely going to be. Well, I feel like the conventions are definitely going to be a bit more like toned down and restrictive if they do open in this year, just because of the fact that it's like there is no vaccine for COVID at the moment. So all they can do is just try to like limit the amount of people if they want to take that risk. Though that's the thing, because it's like, do you want to have a convention and then risk essentially being a hotbed or another hotbed for like COVID? Because I think it's a good thing, honestly, to have the conventions be canceled, because like you can take as much like precautions as you want, but those conventions, they get packed. So
Yeah.
it's like, do you want to risk getting, while it is fun to like, to cosplay as one of your favorite characters from, insert whatever pop culture media, etc., in the blank. But it's like, would you want to risk doing that at a convention where, and actually here's the fascinating thing too, because there are a lot of people who aren't taking it seriously enough, who aren't taking the precautions of wearing masks and whatnot, or if they are, they're wearing it like just below their noses too sometimes. They're kind of getting lazy with it, essentially making the mask pointless then. So it's kind of like, yeah, I think it's like going to be a good thing for now if there are like, the conventions aren't having the big gatherings and just doing like some digital thing to kind of make up for it at the time, because this will pass. It's just, like, it sucks for now, but once there's a vaccine and once things do start returning to the new normal, like, then it's going to be fine. And honestly, also, I think it's gonna inspire a lot of like people who cosplay as whatever character they did before to probably add some new like mask thing to it that would look like really awesome, that would go well with whoever they would cosplay as to begin with, unless it was a character that already had some sort of helmet or mask thing anyway. Like, let me actually look for it in here, because I actually have a Mandalorian helmet.
Yeah, I honestly think that people like Bane and Jango Fett and Boba Fett and Darth Vader, like people who wear masks like that, character-wise, there's probably a lot of surge of people actually wearing those masks. Ooh,
Yeah,
that actually looks nice.
yeah. I don't know if the background's making it look
It's sort of like doing that, but I think,
yeah, let's see if I can. Okay, here we go. I put it more in front of me. It kind of helps a little bit.
yeah, that actually looks nice.
Yeah.
Is that
It's
supposed
like,
to be is that the Mandalorian, or is that just or is that just Mandalorian helmet in general?
oh, Mando. From from the Disney Plus Mandalorian show.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Yeah. Because and yeah, it's like stuff like that because it covers your face, so that will definitely help. Because like one things I've definitely seen people wearing are like these sort of like visor things that shield your face. So like helmets and stuff like that, that's gonna be like perfect. Where and I was actually even considering. So actually, I came across this. I don't remember what the website was at the moment, but they had like this Arkham Knight helmet thing, and I was actually kind of considering getting that because honestly, because it just looked really nice, and it's like be nice to have like more of those like kind of helmet things because then it's like because when you're in New York, it's like it's easy to be a character, and it's really fun just kind of walk around in New York with like those helmet kind of things on. I mean, kind of not as much now with everything going on, but
so instead, to segue from that, what got you into the arts? Was it a play, a musical, a film, video game? Like, what really sparked your curiosity with acting?
I just honestly, it was just a love of storytelling, really. Like I always just love really good stories in like whatever medium it was. And when I kind of started like figuring out, hey, a great way to be a great storyteller is to get involved in acting because you're essentially telling a story. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah, yeah. Because like whatever it is, I'm all about story first. Like, whatever movie, TV show, video game, whatever, I'm like story first. Like that is my thing.
In terms of those stories, do you have any like inspirations for those stories that are like top tier? Like, hey, like in terms of inspirations, like Gary Oldman is a big inspiration. I've talked about it. I talked about him in my
Mm,
episode. Walking,
mm,
big inspiration for me.
mm,
James Spader, and a couple others,
mm,
and both in terms of how they approach acting, but also in their mannerisms in general, how they're able to, you know, influence their like almost like energy in terms of the characters that they play. Like if you're watching an Al
mm,
movie, chances are he's like reserving all of his like manic energy until like maybe towards the end, where he has that one brief
mm,
moment where it's just like all that spastic energy comes out. Or if you're watching a De Niro movie,
mm,
has that very soothing, not soothing, like seething rage that he's gonna burst one moment. Like that's what.
mm,
So in terms of inspirations, do you have like any
mm.
like film inspirations, actor inspirations that really do help you in terms of your acting, or is it just like very open and like essentially very open and mindful? It's like, hey, I like this, but I also like this. I hate this, but there's something about this that I do like.
It's kind of an openness. Like I will more or less watch anything. Like there's some things I'm just kind of like, maybe not. But I am kind of like into like a lot. I try to watch a lot of stuff. Like, but I think like if I do have to pick an inspiration, it would be Heath Ledger's Joker, just because like part of the reason also for that is like I grew up with comic books and very like nerdy stuff and whatnot. And one of my favorite superheroes was the Batman, and one of my favorite supervillains was the Joker because they had such a great dichotomy, like such like natural like opposites, always against each other, and no matter what, that would always be the case. And this is the way Heath Ledger portrayed the Joker. Like honestly, just from all the comics I read before, I'm like, this is kind of the definitive Joker, really, because he's smart, he's crafty, he's like he also has like his own kind of sense of humor, and the way he sees the world is kind of really accurate to like really to some of the like best portrayals of Joker in comic books and TV shows.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I had this similar discussion with some of my best friends a couple of like just yesterday, And I was mentioning how if I had a top tier like villains list, Joker would probably be in the top 3, and there'd probably be like maybe Hannibal Lecter, Heath Ledger's Joker, and then Colonel Hans Lander, and maybe a couple others. And it's odd because it's very odd how you just mentioned the Joker. It's because Joker is almost like an inspiration to a lot of people, especially in acting, because the Joker is really one of those type of characters that is perfect to play because it's a lot of your own, not only your manic energy, that sort of thing, but it just takes a lot of your energy in general to put it into your thing.
Oh, okay.
All right. But in terms of just Joker in general, it's like it's very hard because it's like there are certain characters that actors do want to play because we want to emulate that, and it's because, and we could have a whole discussion about why Jared Leto's Joker was horrible, but not because of writing in general, but because he was like really, really trying hard. The thing about the Joker is that you don't have to really try hard as Joker. I'm not sure if you've been watching this, but on DC Universe, there's Harley Quinn, and Alan Tudyk has been voicing the Joker on the show, and he has been perfect as Joker because like the same characters he would play, that very manic, very psychotic type of villain, but at the same time bringing his own little nuances into Joker that hasn't been seen before. You know, when people, it's like when people think it's a Joker animated, they gotta try emulating Mark Hamill, that sort of thing. But when it's Joker in live action, it's either push up between, oh, you gotta try and emulate Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger, or there's some little middle ground, Cesar Romero. And which is odd because, you know, I was actually just thinking about Joker's, you know, with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker just the other day. Because, like, I love that movie.
Same,
I honestly don't like his portrayal as Joker for some reason. And it's because I honestly, you know why? And this might get me heat or flack for that. But he doesn't like, he has the energy of the Joker, right? He has that little energy that I was just talking about. But at the same time, he doesn't feel like the Joker. Like, he just feels like someone who just became, he feels like someone who becomes the ideology of the Joker instead of just the Joker. He just doesn't become, like, he just has theology behind him. He doesn't, it doesn't feel like he has that, I am the Joker. It's like, he doesn't have like that soulless type of thing to him, where it's like everything about Joker is that it's a laugh. You know, he would laugh at a car crashing or something like that. He would laugh at, you know, using a pie in the face, and that pie in the face happened to have acid in it. That sort of thing. He has a very sick sense of humor. And the thing, and again, I do love the film. I do love Joaquin Phoenix's take on the Joker. It's just that I just don't know how his Joker becomes it's like, it's almost like his Joker becomes almost like
how in Gotham, Cameron Monaghan's Joker isn't necessarily Joker, but because it's a prequel, so he almost kind of feels like he's more of this inspiration from the Joker in a way too. Because I don't remember where I read, but that's something I heard. I don't know if it was like the actual intention of that version or if it was a theory.
No, believe I've actually watched Gotham through. I'm actually one of the people who actually watched Gotham from the first episode to the last episode. And originally it was going to be, oh yeah, this is going to be the Joker, you know. But we won't say he was. It's basically the same problem with Smallville. It's like they couldn't show Clark Kent wearing his Superman tights, so they got around it with him just being as the Blur, or, you know, or that sort of thing. Or this, well, not the streak, the red and blue streak, that sort of thing. But in this episode, they have him in the tights, that sort of thing, and they have him like the classic Superman thing. But in them, I think with Gotham is that Cameron Monaghan's Jerome Valeska. I mean, not Jerome Valeska. Jeremiah. Well, one of the Valeska twins. I forget which one it is. It's
That's
Jerome.
okay. That's okay. I haven't really seen Gotham since like after the second season. I just really fell behind with it, and I kind of just forgot. Actually, I ended up forgetting about it for a while.
No, but the thing, and this is the same thing I was just mentioning about, especially with Inspirations, is that Cameron's Joker felt more like almost a smaller version of Heath's Joker mixed in with Jack Nicholson, that sort of thing. And the bad thing is that Cameron is such a great actor. Is that it's like they waste him on a role like this, and they do waste him because spoiler alert, Jerome dies like at least twice on the show, and then they they decided, and this is the great thing about Gotham, because Gotham is pretty much like a soap opera. It's like they decided, it's like, you know what, we made a mistake. We'll just have him play the Joker, but the Joker is really his twin brother Jeremiah, who basically has the one bad day thing, where he basically has this one bad day and just becomes sick and twisted. Might have been sick and twisted in the foreground, and he has his own like prototype Harley Quinn thing, but we won't call her Harley Quinn, it's that sort of thing. Even if he is like Harley Quinn, is like, and by the time the show ends and Bruce has become Batman and whatnot, he's like this very deformed shell of his former self, and was like, and you have to, and the thing is, though, Cameron is such a good actor, you actually kind of believe that this is the type of person who would fight Batman almost nightly about, hey, I'm going to the bank or something like that. It's like every other night he's like, the Joker's doing something. Damn it. and I do agree. It's like it's odd how essentially when it comes to inspirations, it's odd how a lot of these actors, like they do, especially for something like the Joker, it's a very mixed bag, because there's all these different interpretations now, and I know probably, and I know in 10 years' time, people will be like, "Oh, I want to become like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker," that sort of thing. And if you rewatch the movie, it's about a guy who has like a very, very, who just spirals out of control. But that doesn't Joker.
And it's also a class thing. And also, like, really, the biggest thing with that movie too, it's more of like a class thing, really.
Yeah.
Like, because he's like someone in a very like lower class thing. He's like doing very like, in lower class society kind of jobs, and he's like, constantly struggling, constantly getting abused. And it's like, because I know people probably just put it like, like race on his character for a second, but I'm like, no, just take that out for a second and just look at like, what is the actually going on, not the race, but just like what happens to people in those lower class kind of things. Like they constantly get treated like trash. Yeah. And it's like you look at the upper people in society, and they really just don't care. And it's like actually, I think actually one of the biggest things to really kind of make it apparent in a way is like in the scene in the that talk show interview, when Joaquin Phoenix is being interviewed, he admits to murdering the 3 stockbrokers on the subway train. Like what would be the normal response? Oh, well, you just call the cops, you like stop the taping. But no, the TV host is actually like, no, you know what, screw that, I'm just going to keep engaging with this person who literally just admitted to killing 3 people. And it's like why doesn't anyone bring that point up though too about this movie when they talk about like the Joker's character? And I'm like, that kind of seems like something that should be brought up too, though, because the Joker is bad, but that's only part of it too, though. Because it's like, because like I remember having this conversation with someone where it's like, with the whole line of you get what you effing deserve. Well, it's kind of a yes and no in a way. Like, of course, no one deserves to be murdered, obviously. But when you create a system that oppresses people and essentially perpetuate it, like, I mean, just look what's going on in the world now. Essentially, a lot of what's going on in the world now is just because of like the system we have is an oppressive system. And it's like, yeah, like of course something was going to happen. How would you not expect something to happen when you create a system that is like purposely oppressive to those in lower classes of society?
Uh, so in terms of
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of just went off on like a soapbox there.
no. Honestly, it's your hour, so you don't. And and again, this show is like raw and unedited almost. So it's like you get the opinions of the people I'm interviewing, and my opinions too. So it's like it's a 50-50 thing. So it's like, hey, I might trail off. My guest might trail off. Who knows? Fun show. Do you have a defining moment for you already, or are you still waiting for that defining moment?
In terms of,
Let me rephrase that. A defining moment in your career that where it's like, okay, because for me, my defining moment for me was that when I was a kid, my father's school used to be always being taped in terms of like shows, that sort of thing. So I happened to be on the set of Ghost Shredder one day, and Ghost Shredder is this very old PBS show that they rebooted on Apple TV. I don't know if it's good or not because I don't have Apple TV. And I was watching them film a scene where this guy tries to run away with like $500,000 or something, that sort of thing. And do this whole spectacular stunt where it's like, all this money is flown in the air. And I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. It's like, people do this like, and people do this for a living. It's like, and, as I grew older, it's like I grew more and more interested in acting, that sort of thing, and I studied really films in general, that sort of thing. So the defining moments of my life was really being on a movie set and seeing how fun that was. Like, in terms of you, it's like, do you have like a defining moment where it's like you knew when you want to start acting, or do you have a defining moment where it's like this might be the right path for me because I'm actually meeting the right people, because like I work as a ticket person for stuff, so, and I've already met a few celebrities and I'm like, this feels so right for me because I'm actually meeting with celebrities who I know of and that sort of thing. And normal me will be like freaking out, but I'm on the job and I'm just like, hey, this is actually a good job for me actually, because I'm always meeting celebrities and like I miss it. Like because of my job, I talked to you like a few months ago about how I nearly crashed into Conan O'Brien on my way back to where I work. Because he was like, because I know this was like around like November, December, so I might have been here for like a week or so or something like that.
He was doing a comedy tour, I think, around that.
Okay.
I think it was a comedy tour around that time.
So it's odd how essentially when you're in a career like this, especially as an actor, it's like to always these defining moments. But have you have a defining moment where it's like, hey, this could be something I want to do. It's like this could be something I really want to do because this feels like something I want to do. It's like that sort of thing.
It's hard to say, to be honest, because like I kind of like I'm trying to figure out how long ago this was now. Maybe a year ago, or not kind of a year ago, I guess. Maybe a little less. I kind of hit this point where I was like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I need to take a break from acting for a bit first, because I wasn't feeling like that same inspiration I had when I was like younger. And also, and maybe it's just because like I was kind of really in this rut where I wasn't like finding a lot of projects I was really either interested in or that really grabbed me, or I even got a callback audition for to begin with, or even an audition at all. So it kind of just felt like it was kind of draining at times, to be honest. Especially because like it's like doing all those like student films, all those like plays or whatever. Like it's experience, but at the same time, it's like it is kind of a little draining when sometimes the work you're doing you don't feel a real investment in a lot of the time. Because there's some things I'm like, well, okay, yeah, it is what it is. Like, actually, there was this one play I was in where like, first off, this director is just a creep. First off, because he basically took a Moliere play, made it all the women characters were now men. Everybody was gay. That's fine. Like, but
Which
it was just the way it was portrayed, though. Almost felt like it was like he did, like he was just doing a stereotype then or something. Like it was just like almost mockery, really.
which
And
Molière play was this?
God, I'm trying to remember. Well, basically, the original premise of this Moliere play was that there was like I think this is like a while ago now. So I'm like, I've tried to just kind of like blank out a lot of this one because it was just such awful experience. Basically, it's like two characters who are like servants, I guess, pretend to be like no, wait, that wasn't right. No, it was basically two people pretend to be people they aren't, and a whole lot of chaos ensues. And basically, in this version, our director had the two guys like completely stripped naked on stage, and I'm like, this kind of feels unnecessary in every way possible.
Yeah.
And also, like, for some reason he tacked on this this monologue from this short play where only one character speaks, and he gave me that one to do, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, because it was just a stupid monologue that rambles on for 20 minutes and made like no real coherent sense. And I'm like, God, I hate this so much. Why am I doing this? Because that's the thing. Because that's the thing with acting. There's a lot of experiences where it's like you kind of just hate it because sometimes the environment of like the like the directors or even certain things the actors. Well, the actors in this one were great. Like they were all really nice people. But it's like you're gonna be in acting situations where the directors or producers or actors or somebody is going to like really bring the energy down in such a way that makes it an awful experience when it shouldn't be. And that's draining its own way too, especially if you don't feel like a real investment in the work and you're just doing it for like the experience. And it's kind of also kind of like, it actually kind of inspired me to like get more into writing, because I used to do that a little bit, like just a lot of fan fiction stuff, but it kind of got me thinking, what if I really try to put more, I don't know, make more work into it to make it something more serious?
It's odd how you mentioned that because a couple of years ago, I was essentially down in the dumps in terms of acting, because it was burning me out. I was going into a school that really wasn't really preparing me well for acting. It's like, oh, they would be, they would be teaching me well, but they wouldn't really be, saying this was really, really good, that sort of thing. And and I ended up essentially dropping out of that acting program and going to filmmaking. And okay, filmmaking would probably be more easier fit for me. The film department was a little fun, and that was a big no-no for me. I should have just kept on going with my acting program there. And for like maybe a period of like 6 months or so, I was really, really depressed in terms of acting because I really feel like I wanted to be an actor. And that one, and I turned to writing, as what you just said before, is like, and I wrote like almost like a reflective play about not only that, but also the like themes that were happening in my life, which was that the previous year, like 2 years before, my grandmother had passed away, so I really needed something to really reflect about that angst I had in my in my like mind and stuff like that, and I was able to get that produced at least twice now. And so it's odd is that even though when acting is a creative and also almost like burnout experience, there are other things in the performing arts that actually help you help you cope in terms of that like burnout. Because even if acting, it's like even if you're in a Broadway play, right? And Broadway is like and Broadway is essentially 8 performances 6 days a week. Yeah, 8 performances 6 days a week, because there's one day where they do have that one day off, that sort of thing. It's usually Mondays,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
usually do twice a couple of, and they even might do twice performances on 2 days. That's
Mm-hmm.
so it might be a dual performance like on a Saturday night, and then a dual performance on maybe a
Like
Wednesday.
a Wednesday.
Yeah, because as I said, acting does burn you out, but at the same time, acting does give you like a very joyous experience. Because even if it does burn you out,
Mm-hmm.
being on that stage, entertaining people, saying those lines, that sort of thing, it helps you greatly because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I had a similar experience with I wouldn't say horrible director, but he was a less than experienced director. He had directed a couple plays, right? And this was a play. I mean, student production, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
he was adapting a play that was essentially three separate plays, but he had to figure out ways to connect those plays into each other play for some reason instead of
Mm-hmm.
being three different plays, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to time for our play, I mean our like one act thing, our
Mm-hmm.
he had like a much more of a difficult time for directing because he didn't know how to direct essentially
Mm-hmm.
five was it five? No, it was like 6 or 7 people. I forgot how many people were in the cast, and one of these actors, he really was a egocentric asshole, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like the type of guy who thought was the guy in production, and he was able to really sway around his way of saying, hey, I kind of want to do this thing, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they actually tacked on a ending to the play, which is like what you just mentioned before, how your director essentially tacked on this monologue that had no bearing to the plot whatsoever, but they felt like, hey, the crowd really likes him, so you know what? We'll just add a little ending that just feels nothing at all for some reason. At all, this feels like, hey, this makes no sense to the play whatsoever. So just add it on to the play, just add it on to make it more enjoyable for the audience. Even though the play ends like literally seconds before that tactile ending just like ends, like everything that has just been resolute, and the character himself, he's only in one scene for like maybe 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, and it was like, well, I'm just in the background, just like drinking a beer.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wanted to be essentially overshadowing the actors and that sort of thing. And here's me on stage playing a Martian, because I was playing a Martian, and here's me playing a Martian, and I'm just like, and it's funny because whenever I'm on stage, I get the best reactions because I'm the guy people are laughing at because the way I'm coming out, because here I am dressed in like a very Ric Flair robe. I'm like make up as anything. I have like a Han Solo blaster that worked as a toy blaster because originally they wanted me to have my own little toy gun. And it's like, no, guys, I have my toy gun. Don't worry. I gave it in. It's like the day of like the first tech week, and like this won't do. But I was like, no, this will do. And I just went bang, 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 and they just looked at me and goes, all right, fine. It's like they couldn't just do it because there's like it's the day of production. It's like, all right, fine. It's like, but it's just and when people saw it was this Han Solo blaster that got most of the laughing because they know it's like, oh my god, it's like my guy is Han Solo blaster. I'm like, and it's funny because acting really does allow you to adapt onto the stage in a very casual manner, especially if there's a it's like not there in this sense because I was doing a play a few years ago. I was supposed to have a cup of coffee. Cup wasn't on stage, so what I did was as I was talking, I just casually moved around as I would do, and I moved towards the back of the set. I was like, and I grabbed the coffee cup from behind the set and grabbed it, and then it looked like I was just grabbing a coffee almost like from the void of blackness that was behind the set, because
Mm.
acting essentially allows you to adapt to a good thing.
Mm.
So, and again, this is why I said we could go on any type of tangent that we want. This is my show. I don't care.
Mm. Yeah.
You go into a tangent or want to go into your soapbox here, I don't care. It's your time. So,
Mhm.
I only have 2 questions left. So, but I expand the crap out of that. That's the type of stuff I won't be included on the thing. So, what can we expect from you in the coming future?
Well, a couple things, I think. So when quarantine started, my partner and I actually started making YouTube videos because she made like a YouTube channel for like sewing tutorial stuff, and I would help film it and then edit it, and then occasionally kind of star in it, do some funny stuff and whatnot. Or we'll try to do some funny stuff, and it kind of actually also got me a little more into like editing stuff as well, because that's another thing I like. Actually, I used to do a fair deal when I was younger, when some friends from my neighborhood wanted to like make YouTube videos. Like I actually pretty much did a lot of the editing for that, so I kind of had a little bit of understanding, and I kind of have a slightly better understanding, and it's something that might kind of get more improved over time as well. As well as also like another, because I have a couple different ideas for things I would like to like write and get made as um like I don't know, short series or something like that. Like one of them essentially being like a kind of a prequel story about Scarecrow, a la Breaking Bad style in a way.
That actually sounds interesting.
Yeah. Like if you want, I can elaborate about it in this podcast, or we can talk about it afterwards if you want.
Well, you can make it into a very short, like a very no. Actually, elaborate about how you came up with the idea of making a Breaking Bad style Scarecrow prequel.
Well, it kind of just like popped up one day because I was just kind of like rewatching some like Breaking Bad clips, and I think it was actually after. Actually, this was also after watching the Joker movie where this kind of occurred to me, where I'm like, this kind of like prequel style for the Joker. I'm like, I wonder if there's any other characters like where you could do something like that and kind of like put some sort of gritty realism. So it's not just like, all the mythical and magical superhero kind of stuff, but something that's more like gritty and real and like relatable to the real world in a way. So basically, it would be like Jonathan Crane would be like a college student, and um, I'm kind of forgetting the science term, like probably like a biochemical engineering or something, obviously in the sciencey arts, and he would be struggling to pay off his student debt. Obviously, something that's very relatable to pretty much anyone who goes to college for the most part. And he ends up having to work with his professor Hugo Strange, who is connected to the Gotham Mafia, and he essentially kind of puts like Jonathan's incredible expertise, his like fear gas toxins and so forth, and he presents that, and and Hugo Strange would present that with Jonathan Crane to like one of like maybe Falcone, maybe Maroni, maybe one of the big mafia names and the Batman lore, and then he would start essentially working for them, and as like a kind of a not well, kind of an interrogator, but more like someone who would just like bring the stuff to try and like help them get information and whatnot, and then they would pay him, and then it would kind of go like that, where it's like John, and then he would kind of over time would become eventually the Scarecrow as he would delve more and more into the crime world.
That actually sounds quite interesting, because I've had a Hannibal style, like Hannibal the TV style version of Nightmare on Elm Street prequel, where it focuses on Freddy as not necessarily as a pariah of Elm Street, but more along the lines of Freddy as sort of like the guy who kind of like is that that family type of father, almost like the father type of way, where it's like he's like that guy in the neighborhood where people kind of know and kind of enjoy, but at the same time, there's kind of like something creepy about him. and the whole idea builds up his relationship with Donald Thomas and
Mm,
other, and it's in that sense, and they become like very good buddies, that sort of thing. But
mm-hmm,
you know, it's something that I would love to explore one day on screen because I feel like,
mm-hmm,
and, and it's weird how we just talked about prequels with Joker prequels. There are ideas of
mm-hmm,
prequels in general that
mm-hmm,
are really unexplored,
mm-hmm,
and when they do prequels that are kind of like on the kind of ruin it, or they kind of overshoot their mark, Sam
mm-hmm.
Raimi, I love him as a director, but he kind of overshot his mark with the Wizard of Oz prequel that he did. What was it?
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago, where he tried to do how the wizard came to Oz, that sort of thing. So it's sort of like
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, was that movie with James Franco?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw trailers for that, and I was just like, I was just like, why? Why does this exist?
and you know, and and there are other prequels that actually do work. With the Halloween prequel
Mm-hmm,
Rob Zombie did 10 years, like almost like a decade ago.
mm-hmm. Or like Better Call Saul.
Yeah, Better Call Saul is
Like,
like all prequels that do work and actually use that, to his advantage. Christopher Nolan, he did a fantastic prequel with Batman Begins, or Origins,
mm-hmm,
really.
yeah.
It's odd how,
Mm-hmm,
and in terms of the Joker, there is a great origin story in that movie. It's just that,
mm-hmm,
and it's not something that feels like the Joker origin story. It feels like someone else's
mm-hmm,
origin story. Just with Joker Joker
mm-hmm.
like tacked on.
Yeah, it's basically like the Killing Joke graphic novel with the taxi driver aspect of it. But it but
That's
it
yeah.
but it actually, the reason why it doesn't work is that it does lean a little too much into the taxi driver aspect. Because why The Killing Joke is one of the best graphic novels was that you see Joker both as the person he was before and the psychotic person he is now, and like going back and forth, where even he says, he chooses to remember things as like multiple choice. Maybe it went this way, maybe it went that way, and even near the end, where he kind of takes a moment where the Joker part of him actually kind of almost seems to stop for a second when he tells Batman, "It just is too late for me." Like, as crazy as he is, he has the intelligence to realize how far gone he is. And then he switches right back into Joker by telling this like crazy joke that kind of shows how like how far he is into Joker. And I think that is where like the Joker movie kind of can miss the mark, because it's too much, because it is too much of like free Joker in a way. Because if the whole thing was like he is supposed to become the Joker, well, we don't really see a lot of time with him as the Joker to begin with. Like, it's just more near like, I don't know, it was like maybe a half hour, 20 minutes. Like, it's pretty short when he actually is the Joker.
Yeah, when he becomes the Joker, it's like literally in the last like maybe 20 minutes or so. And
Yeah.
when he is like the Joker, it's not really Joker-ish. He's just like this guy who's just a clown.
Yeah.
And when you do feel like he is becoming a Joker, is that shot where he does like the whole thing with with a promo smile and him with the thing. It's like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if this movie had more of that type of moments, I would probably have the idea Joker they were doing. It's just they were, as you just said before, more inclined to a taxi style driver style inspired homage than they were actually doing with the Joker itself. But again, that's a whole other conversation all by itself.
Although I will say Joker is a better taxi driver than Taxi Driver was, to be honest.
We'll agree with the district background.
Yeah.
I don't know. That Joker didn't have Martin Scorsese saying wanting to blow someone up, wanting to shoot someone with a 44 Magnum. Okay.
Well, yeah, but like it is just a little weird because like it is like they don't fully like kind of make it clear how he's crazy per se in the movie itself, or it's because the ending is a little odd. Like,
yeah,
because my assumption watching that is like, okay, he must be a Vietnam War vet, I guess. But aside from just the jacket that he has, that for all we know, he probably just got from an army surplus store. There's nothing to really indicate, to my knowledge, and I watched this a while ago, so I don't know, maybe I missed something, but there's nothing to indicate that theory, that maybe he's just a war vet suffering from PTSD and he needs, like proper treatment, but isn't getting it.
Yeah. And
Or he's just really someone who's so crazy that that maybe he got rejected from the army, but he went to an army surplus store, got the jacket anyway, and is trying to, like, I don't know, live out some sort of military fantasy that he didn't get to have, maybe. And just the ending is just a little, like, I'm just kind of like, is he dead? Because there's that shootout scene.
well, Scorsese.
But then there's scenes after it where I'm just a little lost. Where I was a little lost when I watched it.
Again, that's the thing about filmmaking, is that, especially in those type of films, is that there's a sense of ambiguity, and the ambiguity really does help you in terms of which film you watch or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're kind of running out. Not it's kind of, because we're kind of like almost getting close to an hour, almost talking about his acting in general, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's been a very informative thing, especially how, in terms of just acting in general, do you have any advice for anybody who has been like listening / watching / whatever going to be doing in the future with this thing?
Well, it's hard to give advice right now because of everything going on, but I would say just like follow your heart, really. Like, if you're really invested in, like, if you really care about what you're doing, then keep doing it, because if you love it, then it's going to be great. But also make sure that you're not letting your own mental health suffer at the same time. So make sure you're kind of keeping yourself balanced, so that way you can enjoy it and stay healthy at the same time.
Yeah, I do agree. I think in the light of this climate that we have, like literally this climate that we have, I think mental health and just mental health in general is something that needs to essentially be focused on and all that, and essentially feel a lot more comfortable with, because I know people, and it's odd because when I had problems in terms, and I will be blunt about this, I had problems with anxieties and stuff like that. I had social anxiety. But me as an actor is a great step up with me as an actor, because I have all fear being in front of people, that sort of thing. But that fear just essentially goes away the moment I'm on stage, because I know all my lines. And I'm just happy with those lines. And just burnout in general, we have to also treat people who have, who can't be on stage, for almost like 8 hours. Have to be in theater for like 8 hours just to do 2 shows or maybe even 1 show. And depending on the crowd may love it, the crowd may hate it, the crowd may be indifferent, because I've been in shows that been very indifferent in terms of what I've been doing on stage. And and it's odd, because New York is a very fun city to be in a crowd. It's sad, because I would love to go to LA. I would love to be in LA for like maybe a month and just be in that LA scene. And being essentially not necessarily living the LA dream, but experiencing the LA like theater scene, especially because and acting classes, that sort of thing. I would love to go to Chicago and visit Second City if they're still there. I think they are. I'm not sure. But I would love to go to Chicago, be see their kind of like comedy schools, that sort of thing. But and it's odd because, well, it's not odd. It's matter of fact that I had a film class last year where my film professor had told us that New York is essentially the media hub of the whole of the media hub of America. And because of what's been happening, it's that hub is kind of like stopped right now, obviously. But once productions start going again, that sort of thing, I'm pretty sure everything will become a lot more smoother in terms of what's going on. Even if like we mentioned before, they had to make precautions in terms of, hey, we have to address coronavirus, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that one of my favorite sitcoms, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, is definitely going to be addressing the whole police thing that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an interesting Brave New World, and that Brave New World is going to be very, very interesting to be a part of it. But what you just said before, like something that hasn't really been focused on, which is the whole mental health thing.
Mm-hmm. And actually, kind of bring Joker back into it for just a quick second.
Yeah, go
There's
ahead.
actually like that mental health aspect. Like it is actually in the movie, but nobody, like I don't see a lot of people actually talk about that when, or at least before when they discuss the movie. Like like literally Joker is seeing like a like it is seeing like someone that the like the state or the government or whatever is like, you know, like saying, hey, you know, like I'm trying to remember what the title was. It's like as like a social worker, I guess, or state mandated therapist or something, maybe, or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Where like, yeah, the Joker is seeing that person for his mental health issues, but what happens like within, I think like the first 10, 20 minutes of the movie, basically the funding for that institution gets cut. So Joker loses like his source of mental health. And it's like, no one seems to want to talk about that. Like that was actually a point I tried bringing up with someone, and that got completely ignored. And it's like, you kind of probably shouldn't ignore this point though, because there's kind of a truth to it. Like if we don't actually treat people's mental health, you know, seriously, like that's just not a good thing, because there are a lot of people who, you know, do need mental health treatment. And it's like, if there isn't something to help that, it's like, it just, things get worse essentially for people.
Yeah, and I've heard stories of people who, well, not people, but actors who essentially walked up stage in the middle of a performance because they've been having a, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because the stress of acting does get to them. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as I do love acting, there is points where I do need to take breaks from that acting, even if it's like a few months or even close to a year, because I need to
Mm-hmm.
recharge. Because, and in that time, I usually do right because, you know, it's writing in general is a great output for that thing. And
Mm-hmm.
and I know for a fact that the stuff that we did, Christmas Time in the City, the times when I
Mm-hmm.
read your stuff, it was hilarious. You know,
Oh, thank you.
you had a. I'm not sure if you did the sketch where it was uh, Disney buying the North Pole or something like that, but that was.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was a sketch you wrote that essentially that Disney actually bought the North Pole, and they basically bought Santa, and then essentially Santa was now owner. It was now owned by the House of Mouse, and now a
Mm-hmm.
mouse employee played by you has it tells
Mm-hmm.
him, oh, you know, it's just, you know, Walt's decision, this or something like that. That is
Mm-hmm.
mean to tell you that, you know, you're out of here, buddy, and all that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
and but the idea of essentially Santa Claus being kicked out because of Disney. Uh, 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 Mass production is hilarious all by itself, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
Anyway, that has been my hour of, or maybe I have no idea how long this is, but this has been episode 4 Performing the Arts. Oh, Hayden, before I go, do you have any social media you want to plug?
Yeah, I have like a couple. So I have 2 Instagrams. It's my main Instagram, Hayden _Lummus 96. And then I have my cosplay Instagram that doesn't have too much at the moment, but it has a few things on it. It's called, that cosplay Instagram is called Squall the Mandalorian, all one word. And then you can just find, you can just find me on Facebook too.
Yeah, he's a very friendly guy on Facebook. Trust me. He'll just like talk to you for hours, and I would
Mm-hmm.
and I would have assignments that I'd be doing. And I'm talking to him. It's like, it's like, do I have to do something like that? And I'm like, oh crap, I gotta do this. So I'd be like, this has been episode 4. I've been your host, Bryan M. Davis. Have a good day or night, or whenever you've been watching this. Take care, everyone. Please be safe.